So little spits, but not like some little there, like that, right? So I started thinking about them, sorry, yeah, I think that's fine. Also, like, you know, I'd say there's requirements. I get to something like that, but I didn't like overwhelmed. But I think okay, we went back to it's super deep. I don't I'm trying to know what I would have done. I give us a pack. No, right. Two tires were there. That's fine. And if you're here, for whatever. It would have been over. Like that. I just feel like
Man, how you doing?
it's been 30 minutes.
And I can.
I did. I was like, we should so that was like Delaware started no tire.
Yeah.
And she set up as the next day. We talked about
So
now she's relocated to
what you just do production and again, certainly doing it in the past. You're going to see it's about it's the second quick introduction about the field started, we'll get their posters lined up, get all set up. I'll go through the agenda and then the next slide.
I was with the flyer. Okay. That's oh, good for you. Good for you.
It's like, but everybody else is like.
And but you had to see that. Oh, that's great. But you said us like, yeah. Right here.
Yeah.
How do I know?
Good evening, Zoom room. We're gonna give a couple more minutes. People are still filtering in, both on the Zoom room as well as in person. So we're just gonna wait a minute or two. We're definitely gonna honor everyone's time and get started right away. Just a minute or two and we'll get started, okay? Thank you so much. All right, good evening, everyone. We're gonna go ahead and get started. Thank you for your patience while we made sure everybody was settled in. My name is Dan Shelton, superintendent here in the Christina School District. We're very happy to have everyone here to participate in this evening's community forum around our master plan. So to set the stage, I'm gonna turn it over to the leaders of this project.
Thank you, Dr. Shelton. My name is Philip Conte. I'm an architect at Studio Jade, and with me is David Mengers and Karen Anderson, also on the team. So we are to have an interactive element to this meeting. So if you don't mind and you want to participate, go ahead and just open up your cameras, point it to the QR code, and go ahead and click the website.
Feel free to stand up. Some people had to do a little more moving around than others to get it last month.
Oh, let me go back. Wi-Fi, go to Wi-Fi, look at the available Wi-Fi channels. One of them says Studio Jade. Go ahead and click that one. You will have much wider.
If you're relying on your own cell service, you will be disappointed. We are in the center of no signal high school.
That's one way to stop the cell phone thing. It's like
It-
just.
Costco doesn't have to worry about that.
Eugene.
Yes. Does everybody feel like they're ready? No? Okay. Get it?
Slowly.
Are you on the Studio J Wi-Fi here?
Oh.
We're getting thumbs up online, we're ready to go.
All right.
So while everybody's logging in, this worked really well last time to get feedback from those of you online as well as in the school, in our building tonight. So if you haven't done it yet, at menti.com is, it's great. You'll get to see the slides on your screen as well as be able to respond as we go along. It worked out really nicely last time.
We also offer tech support.
Anybody else in the room need some,
So
tech help?
close out.
If so, you need to put a ticket.
Yeah, sorry. Go back, just open up your camera, yeah. And go ahead and put it there. And then hit that. I should be good to get it.
Yeah,
It'll catch up.
It will catch
That number, is on slides in the future, I think, too, right? Isn't this number on slides in the future?
On the slides with the question.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, we'll go ahead and get started with our first question. We always like to know who is joining us. So how would you describe yourself? And you can select as many as apply. All right.
If the picture doesn't work, just go to menti.com and then you put in that number and it'll be on the slides as we go. Sometimes that works better than the picture.
All right. So is this your first time attending a public meeting regarding this project?
Goes Zoom. Last time or something.
It counts as you participate.
Yes, you participate.
You use Menti, right?
Yes, it is.
If we are on Zoom at home on a cellular device, how are we going to use Menti at the same time?
You'll have to, when you open your browser, it should send your Zoom into a tiny little box. You'll still be able to hear and hear us. And you'll actually, what you'll see on your browser will be the slides. So it'll still work.
Okay, thanks.
All right, great. Well, we'd like to know how many people have participated previously and who is new in the room. So what do you want to learn more about today? This is maybe our fourth I mean, we've had a number of public sessions that go back,
I think this is
Quite
our
a month
fifth-
ago.
our fifth session.
but we want to know if we're bringing back valuable information to you, or if there's something more that we should be thinking about. And all these answers are kept. This is from last month's presentation. So that'll be part of our final deliverable, but it's a good reference for us. So don't be offended if I don't read all your comments. They are captured. Let's see what we've got so far. Next steps for facilities. When will we build a new high school? I won't have the answer for that question, but that's okay. I want to learn more about how schools will be affected. How is the plan developed as we have received additional input? Greater clarity on schools recommended for closure and the transition plan for students. So all good questions. May be able to answer some of them today. If not, we're capturing them for our final report. So far, as Dr. Shelton mentioned, we had a number of meetings, but do you feel your voice has been heard yet? I will not be offended. We want you to be as honest and candid as possible. It's the only way we'll be able to give you the best product possible. Okay, so we have some work to do. So our agenda for this evening, we want to update you on the work completed to date. I'm going to ask Dr. Shelton to do that. Then we'll talk about the future goal setting. We want to review the project drivers. We talked about this last month and we have a little bit more information about this month. We think the project drivers for Christina are early education, special needs programming, and overall building improvements. Many of the comments that we heard last month in the open-ended questions. And then we have some concepts for consideration that have been advanced from when we were here last month at the elementary grade level, the middle school grade level, and the high school grade level. Dr. Shelton?
Yeah. So we just wanted to briefly touch on some of the work that has been ongoing. So as many people know, but just to make sure everyone is aware, we were blessed in Christina School District to have a significant amount of money given to us by the state of Delaware to do projects within our 4 schools within the city of Wilmington. The Bayard School was down for 2 years, and our students at Bayard went to Pulaski and the Pyle School for those 2 years for a complete renovation from beginning to end renovation. They even changed the way the inside of the building was laid out. So Bayard is a completely renovated school. We had some significant work done at Stubbs. We had some significant work done at Pulaski. And the biggest project is, of course, the new Pritchett School, which will open next school year, a few months away from our grand opening of the Pritchett School. And that school will replace Bancroft, which will be demoed. So the city schools have all had significant work done already. So as we go through this facility master plan, you're not going to see a lot of comments about the city schools because they were done first. And for the most part, those projects are almost complete already. We also had, it was the one thing, there might have been more than one, but I know this is one of them, thing that came out of COVID was the federal government gave us a great deal of money, a lot of which Christina School District spent on facility upgrades specifically around our HVAC systems, our air quality. As we saw that as a priority. Studio Jade had actually started this process with the previous administration 6 years ago with a facility study. So the facility study was done, and we had a lot of projects that were prioritized in that facility study that we were able to take our ESSER money and use that. So when we went to referendum in 2020, we had originally asked for, I think we talked about this last time, so I won't go in great detail, but I think we asked for $98 million. Does that sound right? And of the 98, we got 16. I'm looking at people that know these numbers. But of that 98, we chipped away a lot more with ESSER money. So Studio Jade has gone back in, taking, the city schools are now done. They weren't done before. So we have those projects done. We have the ESSER projects done. So those are done. So they were able to redo the facility study to reprioritize with where we stand currently after all that work was done. So what we're talking about now is, where are our priorities? The facility part is done, but it's not just about facilities, right? We have things we want to do to improve our educational spaces for our students, to make sure that we have the right kind of spaces for the students that we are educating, and we need to take into account where we're growing. And we know where we're growing and need to grow is our students with disabilities, in some cases significant disabilities, and our preschool programs, because that's where we're seeing the most growth. Last year, just as a concrete example, last year we went up, this is an exact number, 36 units. I believe that none of my unit count people are here right now, but I believe we went up 36 units. So that's teachers, but we only went up like 40 kids. How can that be? Well, we increased a lot in students with significant disabilities, and our overall population didn't grow that much. But because a lot of the new kids we were getting and or replacing with kids that we're phasing out were kids with significant disabilities. So we know that that's an area that we need to focus on, and we'll talk about that when we get to drivers. So tonight, I'm going to say it now, and somebody will come online and I'll say it again later. Tonight is about concepts for consideration. We still do not have a plan. What we're doing is throwing out ideas and getting feedback from our constituents so that when we do get our plan, it's well-informed and we'll have a lot of buy-in, because you guys, our constituents, our families, our business partners, our teachers, our other faculty have had input into what we're doing. Did I hit everything?
Yeah, ask a quick question. The growth in special education students, is it distributed equally across the district, or is it concentrated in some areas?
I'm gonna look at my significant disability experts.
I mean, for the Brennan program, our biggest growth area. So, but if we're looking at facilities, all of our facilities to obtain what's around here, and maybe I'm
Is it-
hearing it wrong.
Is it 40? Is it
Yeah.
West Newark? Is it?
Yeah, is it across the district? Are we seeing
Yeah.
growth in special needs students?
It's across the district, but I wouldn't say it's every school. You know
Okay,
what I mean? I think we have a cluster over on Route 40, and then there's a cluster like where spots pop, in Newark.
so I'm a geographer, I always think spatially, so like thinking about like, where are they? How does that affect the buildings in those areas? Is something to.
Well, like, but for Brennan, we then cluster the two, they don't go to their.
Correct,
region as
correct.
well.
Same thing with
So,
Reach State
right.
cluster. Yeah.
Okay, that's my question.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Dr. Shelton. So the goal setting for these types of forums is to discuss and review some of these concepts that we have developed as we've gone through this iterative process. So the drivers that we focused on have been early education, special needs programming, and building improvements. Building improvements is probably the easiest one. That's to keep the building warm, safe, and dry, as Dr. Shelton has mentioned. They've invested a lot of time in that. We have the information on that. We know where roofs need to be replaced and boilers need to be replaced. So that's not that complicated in terms of managing your portfolio. The other two, early education and special needs programming, obviously are a little bit more complex because they're dynamic. So we wanted to develop some guiding principles to keep in mind when we're thinking about early education. We know that early education shapes future success. Investing early enhances the learning skills. Supportive environments foster student potential. There is a community commitment to this process, and Christina is committed to expanding early education. So we developed these early education guiding principles, and this is the language that we want to use when we talk about providing early education. Special needs programming, we did the same thing, developed a number of guiding principles. We know that special education programs meet diverse needs. We know those needs change and they're not always linear. Special education ends up being very tailored and it needs facilities to support that customization. It's important to include the entire community, and we're going to talk about some schools and campuses that already have a sense of community, whereas we were thinking about disrupting that. Maybe that's not a good idea. We know Christina embraces all learners and that having those resources ensures success for everyone. And lastly, the guiding principles for the building improvements. We want spaces that are safe. We know that upgrades enhance the educational experience. Modern facilities support advanced learning, so you need to have the infrastructure and the facilities to support your curriculum. Building improvements attract skilled educators. It's important to keep in mind retention, right? You may have lost students to charter schools. They may not come back, but we certainly want to retain our students as they go through the grade levels, and certainly qualified staff you want to retain. And those investments reflect a commitment to your community. And as Dr. Shelton had said, you have made a great investment in the City of Wilmington schools, which have already been completed or soon will be. And again, the very good stewardship of the ESSER funding. So we broke our presentation down into the elementary school level, middle school level, and high school level. We felt that was the easiest way to sort of start to funnel projects down. So our focus for the elementary school level is to expand early education opportunities along Route 40, to maximize facility and programmatic efficiencies and resources, appropriately support special education programs, and maintain equity across the district. So this is our focus. It's easier said than done, but everyone should know this is our target. And this has developed over the last several years and several months to try to distill it into its most simplest form. So up to tonight, we've explored a number of options that have focused on grade reconfiguration and maximizing building utilization. We've looked at multiple pre-K and K early education centers, maybe a district-wide 1 through 5 elementary school. There were other options that we've looked at as well. All of them had advantages. They did provide additional special education program spaces at the elementary schools throughout the district. And we did maximize building efficiency. But there were a number of disadvantages. As we started looking at enrollment and capacity and where we would want to redistrict students or place our pre-K and K, it would require some select building additions to meet that capacity. And continuity and transitions and a sense of community became an issue of too much disruption. So this is a map that shows your 14 elementary schools currently and your 1 early education center. And again, disclaimer for those joining late, the City of Wilmington schools are not shown because that work has been completed. So in general, your schools are optimally utilized, about 85 to 95% between capacity and enrollment. Based on a district-wide analysis, leisure stood out clearly as the least utilized at about 70%. So the challenges that we're looking at is limited early education opportunities. Enrollment and capacity for special education programs vary by school and by year. So sometimes you're trying to fit in special education programs wherever you can. And the third challenge is that there's minimal to no state funding available for pre-K programs right now. So is there an opportunity here? So this red dotted line represents 95. It fairly divides Christina School District into a north and south. This red dot is your early education center that is at the Smith and Kirk campus. This is the location of Leisure right along Route 40. So the concept that we have for discussion this evening, excuse me, could we develop another early education center for pre-K only at Leisure? Redistrict those students to the other schools. The value proposition is that this concept expands your early education opportunities, reduces the load on SEEK, and does it in a very efficient and sustainable manner. Leisure is a school, about 31 classrooms. All the classrooms have a bathroom. Excuse me, may not be the right fixture, but the infrastructure is there. So a Leisure Early Education Center on Route 40, what are the advantages? Well, we feel that the resource meets the needs, right? That's where the need is, so we provide the resource. Minimal improvements are required to accommodate this change in use. Early education is expanded. We can increase special education program spaces at the early learning centers. However, there is a disadvantage. That there is no expansion of special education program spaces at the elementary schools other than what is already there. Because we have not removed any classrooms from there and redistributed them. Now, a major shift like this would require redistricting, and maybe during that redistricting, you pick up some classrooms throughout the entire district that could be used for special education programming. We'd really want to try to maximize the efficiency of all your elementary schools. Excuse me. Okay. So this is for people at home and here. What questions do you have about this concept? You can anonymously write them here. You could raise your hand. We will try to answer them. All right, I'll start reading off the questions as I can because there may be others in the room that can answer them better than I can right now. How would or could the travel time increase for students? What would that look like?
So,
Busing.
So I'll answer this one. So it's hard to say for certain. And I'll give you my personal example is when we moved into Christina, when we moved within Christina to a house, we were slated for McClary, which my kids could walk to. But when they redistricted, we ended up at Downs, which was a bus ride. It just happened to be where the lines went, right? When they moved the line, they didn't move it very far, but driving wise, you know, it was actually pretty far to McClary, but we could walk through a woods and we were right there. So the beginning and end of what I would say is most kids, based on this concept, not redistricting in general, but this particular redistricting, most kids would remain in their current school, except for Leisure. And you would see more potential movement towards Newark, only because the Leisure kids kind of end up most likely at Porter or Keene, right? Or I'm sorry, Marshall or Keene, no, Marshall or Porter. Marshall or Oberlin. I got it right on the last try. Because that's the closest school to them. But then those schools are actually two of our most crowded schools. So there would be a shift kind of towards the other way in order to get everybody to be closest to their home. In doing that, using my example, there's actually potential, some kids will be closer to the new school than they were to their current school, and some kids will have to travel further. It won't be significant though, because, in Christina, we have high school kids that live in the city of Wilmington and drive down to Newark, Glasgow, and Christiana. That's a long bus ride, right? We're talking about shifts of communities and streets, to the school to your right or to your left. So we're not going to be talking major changes. But again, until the study's done, it would be hard to know exactly, and each individual neighborhood would look different based on whether or not they're staying into school or they're switching to another school.
The record to the, one of the route admins from transportation's on.
Oh,
But wouldn't we?
do you agree with me?
Lori,
She said you got it all wrong.
I actually just posted and said I absolutely agree with you. And I do
Thank
think
you.
we'll reduce travel times for many, many students because our population on Route 40 to the preschool program is one of the highest, it's one of the highest locations. So I think even changing the feeders around Leisure will make everything run more smoothly.
Thank you.
We're talking our youngest students at that point who will be traveling even shorter distance.
Our preschool students,
That's what I meant.
to her point, our preschool students on the south side of the district will absolutely have shorter bus rides.
Right.
Because right now, we're sending kids, over almost to Red Lion, all the way to the early childhood center.
So there's a lot of good questions on here. Some of them we're going to answer in a couple more slides. Some of them have already been answered through the discussion we've had on busing and redistricting. One of the questions was, how will the students be distributed between Leisure and Seek?
So the concept, can you go back to the map? Because it'll just be easier. So the concept right now, right? Somebody has to do a study to make sure it works. But the concept is 95 would divide the preschool feeder. If you're on the north side of 95, which is weird because it runs east to west through Delaware, but it's a north-south road. But if you live north of 95, you would go to Seek. And if you live south of 95, you would go to Leisure. That's right now, big concept.
Another question was, are we moving towards universal pre-K?
So this is not necessarily a Christina question. We are trying to expand our early childhood programs. We've applied for additional ECAP seats. Every year we've had the opportunity. We haven't always gotten them. There is a push at the state legislature to expand both the ECAP program, which is the Early Childhood Assistance Program, which is for preschoolers of families of low income. But there's been a push in the last few sessions to generically expand preschool. That would not necessarily be all kids attend Christina School District as 4-year-olds. What's been pushed out a lot has been sort of that public-private partnership where 4-year-old programs are paid for. Some of that would be done in community centers. Some of that would be expanding preschool programs in our schools. Important note, currently in state code, there is no capital improvement money for comprehensive school districts to expand preschool. That would be one of the first major changes that has to take place is currently we have a mandate, we have a state mandate to educate students with disabilities that are 3 and 4 years old. But if we run out of space, there is no way for us to use state money in the cost share like we do with every other school for preschool programs. That's at 100% locally funded expansion. I think I answered the question and maybe a little more.
For the record, I think we ran out of space. Pre-need, we ran out of space.
So again, we'll log all of these questions will be recorded and we will reference them as we go through the process. So any open dialogue, any comments that anyone wants to share? Are there some other concepts at the elementary school level that we should be considering? Yes.
I remember last time there was some thoughts around potential of like a pre-K to 3-5 type thing. Is that something that's, have you looked at, or do you see the of that? There's a lot from a learning standpoint that I have to pictures on both sides that seem exciting. I'm just trying to-
So we bring these ideas up at our regularly scheduled sort of executive meetings and we see what sticks, what doesn't stick. One
If I
thing
bring it up enough, it might stick.
that.
So one of the things that because there's like 3 different ones that talked about changing grade configuration. Right, there was a number of different comments that brought up. But the one thing that also was a theme was consistency, right? And the number of transitions. And if you break it into smaller numbers of kids, smaller number of grade levels in a school, you end up with more kids at that grade level, but they have to transition more often. And that we've seen as a bigger negative than the age group connections, as long as we keep elementary, middle, and high school. Because there's also been talk over the years of doing K-8. Matter of fact, it was supposed to be across the street here, a K-8, which also has, we have 1 to 8s currently in the city, which has benefits, no transitions, they get to know the kids, drawbacks, 8th graders and 1st graders in the same building. So there's pluses and minuses to all those things.
And I definitely transitions, okay. But from a learning standpoint, as I. Some, like that might. I don't know, I'd be interested to learn more.
All right, thank you. One comment, this was referenced earlier, so I do want to mention it, is that there is an interest in repairing the playgrounds.
So we have a district plan. George has allocated a portion of his budget every year, and he's slowly moving through every school in the district. I think he's getting 1 or 2 a year probably. Does that sound right? 2 a year? So we're doing 2 playgrounds a year. So we will eventually get to all of them. Our minor capital improvement money, which is the money that's used for things like playgrounds, we haven't gotten a raise in that. As a matter of fact, that money's been reduced over the last couple of years. But I think what did we talk about? It's been like 20 years since we had a raise in minor cap. Does that sound about right? And actually, because it's based on student count, we've actually seen a reduction as some of the school districts that are growing, and by the way, have a lot of brand new schools get more minor cap than those of us that aren't growing at significant rates. But by the way, our schools are the oldest and need the most of that money to keep them up and running. So the system doesn't work exactly how it should, but that answers your question.
Yes, and in addition to the playgrounds, fencing, et cetera, for safe sites.
Those are all included when he's doing the work, is looking at the site.
One comment here, equitable size in classrooms for special programs in elementary schools, and we know that that's important.
That's one of our main
The
drivers.
drivers, we don't want to try to fit them in where we can.
That size of classroom is that driver around special programs in particular.
So
May I ask
I'm sorry, go ahead.
may I ask one question before we move away from the playground equipment? Thank you for addressing that. My child goes to Brookside and she's in the the REACH program, and currently their playground equipment is not safe for her to use. She's come home this semester with ripped clothes 4 times from the playground equipment there. I'm having a little difficulty getting to someone who can do something about repairing that. I understand that there are programs in place and that they're looking at replacing the entire playground within 2 to 3 years. But what do we do in the meantime so that it's not just like my child cannot play on the playground because it isn't safe? Are there things in place where the playground equipment company can come out and be paid to repair things that are in disrepair?
Unsafe conditions, we absolutely repair. Things like mulch and the things that hold in the mulch, like that stuff happens as regular maintenance. We were talking about replacing playgrounds, and Brookside was not, I'm being told it wasn't replaced in the last couple of years, but I know it was replaced recently.
It was replaced probably 7.
No, I'm hearing, 8 to 10 years ago. So
Yeah.
it
and
might be coming, if it's 8 to 10 years ago, it might be coming around again soon. But as far as if there's something that's not, that's broken or not right, that we don't wait for the complete reinstall to fix things that are broken. So I have somebody here who has it. He's writing it down on his list to go look at and make sure we figure that out. If you have any specifics and you want to email me, I'll be.
Oh, yeah,
to
I've got
work out.
pictures if you want them.
I couldn't hear.
Um,
you.
What's
Yeah, you can send
happening is
pictures if you want. That's great. I'll forward them to the right people.
the rubber coating on the metal is coming off. So there's metal exposure in a net pattern with sharp edges kind of all over the piece of equipment that the children climb on. So my daughter's
Yeah,
snagging
send me that
clothing
and
on it.
I'll forward it on.
I'll be there.
Okay.
And Ron, her name is Morgan Shin. Okay, I'll be there.
So thank you, Morgan.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening.
So the slide that is before you right now is, what is your opinion of this concept? Some of you may have already answered, so I appreciate it. So we're on the side of supportive, which is positive. So I'd like to move on to the middle school level and the concept for consideration there. Now, you had provided a lot of good information at the last meeting on the middle schools. What's important to you? Why middle school is important? What concerns you? We have them all documented here. We have included that in our thought process as we've moved forward. But I want to direct your attention to the map, which identifies your 3 middle schools, Shoe-Medill, Kirk, Gallagher-Cobbs, and you have your academy at the Christiana High School, which is identified in that green dot.
And the 2 new schools
In Wilmington, which are identified in red. So this is your middle school portfolio. So in general, we have identified that your schools at the middle school level are really underutilized, meaning they're bigger than for the number of students that are in there. That doesn't mean you're not using all the spaces, right? Because if we give you a room, you will use that room. But technically, they're underutilized. And based on the facility and educational adequacy analysis of Gallagher-Cobbs, Gallagher-Cobbs is really a candidate for replacement in its entirety. Based on the facility condition analysis, a portion of Shoe-Medill is a candidate for major renovation. And based on our facility condition analysis of Kirk, that facility has improvement needs that we've talked about to keep the building warm, safe, and dry.
To be clear, the Medill section of Shoe-Medill had a major renovation that completed through Esser. And so it's the shoe side that hasn't been renovated.
So that's the current state of your middle schools. So we looked at enrollment and capacity, and this is important because it leads to a lot of the questions that you had and some suggestions that we want to bring forward. So Kirk is about 700 students, has a capacity of 1,000. Shumadill, 800 students, has a capacity of 1,200. Gulger Cobb, 700 student, has a capacity of 1,400. So our experience, based on doing significant amount of K-12 work, is that the ideal middle school is somewhere between 600 to 800. And certainly we can have a dialogue about that if we need to, but we feel really comfortable in that 600 to 800 range. Which means if someone says, well, why don't you just take one of these middle schools offline? Well, then you have a problem because now you have schools that are beyond what we would consider the ideal parameters. And based upon everything you said last month, that would go in the wrong direction of what we want to do. So if it looks like the path is to maintain 3 equally sized middle schools, what does this look like based on what I already told you about the facilities? But before we did this, and I wanted to put this in here because I wanted you to know that we heard you. I have a number of items that talked about school size and what makes the middle school the right size and why, for a number of reasons: individual attention, stronger sense of community, better student engagement. They're safer. There's a higher academic performance. There's reduced bullying. And lastly, there's enhanced extracurricular participation because a smaller school would attract more opportunities. Curriculum is tailored and better communication for the staff and the parents and the students. So these are the parameters that we developed to convince ourselves that the right size middle school and staying with 3 may be a recommended path forward. So this slide identifies the actual size of the buildings. So Kirk is about 125,000 square feet. Shumadill is about 154,000 square feet. And Gulger Cobb's is about 187,000 square feet. So these are very large buildings that you're heating and maintaining and cleaning. I wanted to put this on here because our approach is basically 3-step. We think we can increase enrollment and renovate Kirk, reduce enrollment and demolish and renovate part of Shumadill, and then create a new approximately 735, that would be about the size of each one, middle school at the Gulger Cobb site. And according to DOE formula, that building would be about 104,000 square feet. So a new 735 student middle school is about 104,000 square feet. So let's go back and see what we have to work with. At Shumadill, you're at 154,000. So maybe we can recognize some efficiencies there. Maybe part of the building that was not renovated could be demolished or other pieces, and we could rebuild appropriately because we want to talk about equity amongst all middle schools. Kirk is at 124,000 square feet. Maybe that's fine just the way it is. But Gulger Cobb's is 187, really a beast. So let's just look at each one. This is Kirk, and Kirk.
That's Kirk, Shu,
That's
Seek, and Brennan.
yes. Smith, Kirk Smith.
Oh, Smith, what did I say?
Shu.
Oh, sorry.
But this is important. This is a campus that is, for all intent and purpose, working. Right? And we don't need to talk about the facility component of a roof or something, but this entire campus is working. And if you were to move forward with the early education component, you're freeing up capacity at Seek, which gives you probably a lot more opportunity around that entire campus. So there was discussion previously, and we had other ideas of maybe negatively impacting this site. Don't think that's probably the best idea going forward. This is Shumadill, and again, there may be opportunities here to recognize some efficiencies. right size these schools. And everyone asked me last month what right size means, and that means just to have the appropriate square footage for the enrollment, as well as all of the program spaces that you need, art, music, gym, etc. Last is the site at Gulger Cobbs. Now, Gulger Cobbs, the building is oversized and it has capital improvement needs. The lack of natural light and windows creates an environment that is not conducive to new century teaching and learning. I mean, literally, there's only about a half a dozen windows on a building that's 187,000 square feet. It's not appropriate at all. So we wanted to do a little test fit. Could we fit a new multi-story compact middle school on the site while it remained operational? We just happened to put it there. It could go at other places on the site. But Gulger Cobbs is big enough for a new right-sized middle school, giving you then the opportunity to develop the rest of that site, maybe for athletic fields or other community resources. So for those at home and here, what questions do you have about this middle school level concept? All right, so some of the first couple questions is, how does the plan accommodate growth? So preparing for growth is important in any type of project. So in new construction or major renovation, you can set yourself up to expand as you need to. So growth will have to be considered in all of these projects. We are expecting our demographic report within the next month or so. So that will give us a projection of where there may be some additional growth. What upgrades would happen at Kirk? It's too soon to tell. We would go back and look at our facility condition assessment. And really, it's important to understand that this whole middle school concept, it's in our opinion, it's either all or nothing, right? You can't build a new Gulger Cobbs with new century teaching and learning spaces and not improve Kirk or Shumadill to have that same type of facilities. They don't all have to be new buildings, but they do need to be equitable. And equitable is not equal, but they do need to be equitable. That's why the middle school concept is a major initiative. One is, when can we begin? How does the honors, it's going off the next page, academy change? And we do not anticipate any change in that. We would leave the honors academy at Christiana High School.
I think the question is, can you expand the Honors Academy to one of the schools? Like,
There's a
could you-
couple.
Yeah, there's a couple of them.
yeah, like, it's looking like somebody's asking, could we put an Honors Academy at one of those?
So the Honors Academy has about 300 students right now. That's about right?
Yes,
300?
yes. In the middle school portion.
So anything is possible. We want to try to stay within that sweet spot of the size of the middle school. We also want to make sure we resist creating this idea that that's the honors middle school. You know, that's the,
Right.
you know, I don't think we want to
Tag it.
start down that path. But certainly it's a good question, and we can look into that further. This one, have we engaged population shift study? That's the demographic report that we expect in the next month. I like the size of the middle schools. Create a true honors academy. Would this require redistricting? Too soon to tell. That the whole concept of redistricting depends on any or all of these initiatives that may move forward over the next 3, 5, 10 years.
Yeah, and we kind of touched on this before, but from an equity standpoint, when you think about really our large working class population, south of 95. So I don't know how directly where it can be covered. But it just feels like from an equity standpoint. Recognize those students here to travel. I don't actually know if they travel.
So our demographic report will help that discussion. All right, so again, we will catalog, all of these will be recorded. Thank you. Any other discussions about the middle school concepts? Before you probably know the next question. Are there other concepts for the middle school that we should consider? Is there anything that we're missing at the middle school? It's okay if there's not. We've been working on this for like 6 years now. All right, so what is your opinion? I'm all in, supportive but have questions, not supportive but could be convinced with additional information, or no way? And again, this is a small sampling of the Christina School District. And many of you have indulged me before, so I appreciate it. But it is important that we move forward with some kind of feedback, and this is all very helpful. It looks like we have a little bit of work to do here, and that's fine. Okay, we're going to move on to the last one, the high school level. Now, there's been recent developments in the last month, so we'll share. First, let's identify our assets: Newark, Glasgow, and Christiana. All of them, well, I'm sorry, Newark is underutilized, Glasgow is underutilized, Christiana is at optimal utilization. So some of the challenges here. How do we increase efficiencies and recognize savings? How do we improve the facilities to support special education programming? And how can we maintain options so as to respond to future high school changes, such as the Reading Plan? What will that mean for the high school? So enrollment and capacity. Newark is about 1,000 students, capacity 1,700. Glasgow, 900 students, capacity 1,200. Christiana, 1,340 with a capacity of 1,350. So that's at capacity. We're not doing anything more at Christiana. Now, so Reading votes to remove Christina from Wilmington. You haven't seen this. This came out yesterday, maybe 2 days ago.
So just to be clear, they voted to ask the State Board of Education if they were okay with them moving forward with a 3-year plan to move Christina out. So this isn't next week. This is 3 years to develop a plan, which means probably no less than 5 years before we see any kind of implementation, no less than.
All of that underlined in red, so as to make sure you understand that. This is not an immediate action item.
This is further than we've gotten in the last year. 4 years. All right, well, 20 years. This is further than.
It was approached different.
I've been following for 20 years.
So what does this mean? It means that we need to be flexible in our planning so that we can adapt, so that we are prepared to any future opportunities and potential consolidations. So, for example, what does that mean? we don't want to invest $50 million in a high school that may come offline. Just saying,
So just going back to your numbers,
yes.
you go back to the numbers slide. We currently have almost exactly 500 students in the spread amongst the 3 high schools that travel from the city of Wilmington down to our 3 high schools. Not terribly evenly distributed. I feel like Newark's the highest and Glasgow's the lowest. I believe that's right. Christiana's in the middle,
500 total.
but 500 spread across, yes.
And you could see if you were to take 500 away, well, then you have a significant utilization problem that really should be addressed with some type of consolidation. But we're nowhere near that. So we wanted to start with our initial focus, and we chose Glasgow for a number of reasons. We have this concept to present where maybe we reduce the capacity at Glasgow a little bit. Those students would go up the road to Newark where they have the room. We could bring the administration and expand their footprint here by about 5,000 square feet. That frees up Eden for divesting. We struggle to find any other good use, certainly for the building, which is not good. And the site is not, and the site is challenged for a number of reasons: traffic, its location, and egress, etc. So that becomes an asset that could be divested in consolidating administration here at Glasgow. We also have the idea of bringing networks to Glasgow. Could we go from what we think you lease about 14,000 square feet to give you about 18,000 square feet at Glasgow? So we could give you more space. We could get out of that lease. At a very high level, we put it on the second floor because we need to maintain, obviously, an 800 student high school, district office. You know, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to figure that out, but that does accomplish some of our goals, right? We want to be innovative, but we want to be responsible, get you out of leases that are not, value added. And it also prepares you for what could happen 5 or more years from now if you were to lose 500 students. I think it's important that you maintain your Newark High School site. That's valuable real estate. Glasgow is the only high school that has a pool. You have a really nice auditorium. You've got a lot of major spaces here. You've got fields. Glasgow High School could be repurposed into something in the future that is a wonderful community asset. So again, this approach, we feel, does no harm. There was some discussion about, does a smaller high school limit the program opportunities? So we're doing 2 new high schools in New England. One is 725 students, the other is 750 students. Both of them have 5 tracks of CTE programs: culinary, building construction, computer, CNA, and EMT training. So it's our experience that a 725 student high school can support not only the academics, but also the career tech pathways that you elect to pursue. I know it's a little different here because you have Sussex Tech and Newcastle Tech and everything else. But an 800 student high school would not concern us. We want to give a little bit more room here at Glasgow to bring these other pieces in, redistribute them right up the road to Newark. I'm simplifying this a lot more than what it really is, but that's the concept. This approach maintains those quality spaces that you have at Glasgow: the pool, the gymnasium, the auditorium. It reduces lease space. And it initiates this idea of consolidation if it were to happen. So what questions are there about the high school level concept? You know, part of this is if there are things that are working, and if it's not broke, we don't want to fix it. And I don't mean from a facility standpoint, I'm talking about from, you know. So a couple questions, Dr. Shelton, you could maybe help me out with the first one. What is being done to expand CTE?
So CTE programs are a really important part of what we're doing. This year, we expanded into an emergency EMT emergency services program. That was a new one this year. We've expanded our teacher prep recently, about 2019 unique. What was the year that we did the focusing of the CTEs? You were Christiana.
Yeah, that was 1920.
We did we adjusted some of it was prior to this administration, adjusted some of the CT program locations so that we had, for example, Christiana High School is our ag program now. And there was a major renovation done there. It's an amazing facility for ag. We did renovations here specifically around our food and hospitality programming. So we are trying to continue that as expansion, offer our kids additional opportunities. But again, to the point that was made earlier, you are limited to how many programs you can offer by the number of kids enrolled. If you don't get enough kids enrolled, you can't support the teacher, and that's when it becomes problematic.
One thing I can add to expanding CTE, we think that when you tackle a middle school project, introducing that at the middle school level is a great opportunity. That's what I'm talking about. You could certainly do it in a new building, but you're going to want to make sure you do it also at Kirk and Shumadill to have it be equitable. There's a question about overall improvements to Newark and Christiana. So that goes back to the facilities condition assessment we have in keeping buildings warm, safe, and dry. We know what those facility improvements are, and we're packaging them together on priority based on what facilities has already done. So we certainly are not saying that there's no work necessary at these other facilities.
We have a person online with a question.
Okay.
Go ahead, Kelly. This is Kelly Oldest.
Hi, yeah, I'm Kelly Oldest. I have two students that are in the district. I've been an employee. I work in another district, but my question was actually about CTE because my older son, his whole goal was to do welding and to do, pipe laying and everything else, but there was no opportunity for him. And he struggled in high school because he didn't have something that he really wanted to do. Band was his only savior that kind of got him through, but that is really what I'm referring to. Like we're competing with Votex, and yes, they have a different admin thing, but like bringing those hands-on things that kids who are not going to go to college can actually get some CTE training because it's career and technical education.
Yep. So I couldn't agree with you more. Let me give you some Delaware history. When Votex moved from a half-day program to a full-day program, in that same, I don't know if it's law or code or whatever it is, but there are certain programs that are only allowed to be offered at the Votex high schools. Carpentry, welding, auto tech. There's quite a few of them. Cosmetology, electrical. There's a very long list. of the trades that we are not allowed to offer in the comprehensive high schools. So I couldn't agree with you more that the kids going to our schools need opportunities like that, but we're not allowed to offer those. So to get a CTE program, we have to do a feasibility study. We actually have to apply to the state, and the state will not grant comprehensive school districts CTE programs that are on this long list that are reserved for the VOTEX.
So if they are at other high schools that are comprehensive high schools, are they grandfathered in, or is that a misconception?
I'm not sure I follow the question.
I teach at McCain High School, and we have auto tech, and we also have a wood shop. It's called drafting and engineering and a couple other names, but we're a comprehensive high school. So are they grandfathered in because they've had it? I know that it's been there a while.
Go ahead.
I was thinking maybe.
Yeah, so unique saying that maybe they're not funded for it. Auto tech, I'm really surprised about. Drafting and those type of things, that absolutely falls under things that we can do. But I would be I mean, I know that when they opened Hodgson, they pulled our VOTEC out of, or our auto tech out of Glasgow. I still have the garages downstairs, but we're not allowed to have the program here.
When did that take place?
Remember, Ron?
The nineties, like late eighties, early nineties.
Code?
I don't know if it's code, law, or just our CTE process that they won't allow us. So when we were in Dover, we had a Air Force colonel who was a pilot and really wanted to bring that into the high school, but that was on the list of reserved. Only Poly could teach that course.
So I wouldn't be able to sleep tonight if I didn't tell this woman this story. So I don't know how old your son is who's interested in welding. I don't know if he has a job or not. But if he's looking to make a significant amount of money, he wants to go to Groton, Connecticut, or Quonset, Rhode Island, and tell him to just work for Electric Boat. They make all the submarines that the United States needs. And trust me, they are dying for welders there, and they will make significant amount of money if he's prepared to move just about 4 hours up the road. That's all.
I should also add that at Christiana High School, they have a new program called, is it Farm Tech?
Yes, where they're doing welding, there's new welding lab.
And they're doing welding as part of Farm Tech. So there is a welding lab at Christiana High School.
So tractors to submarines, whatever interests him, he will be fine.
Ever, will that vision of Newark High School being an art school ever come to fruition?
So Newark has been positioned to become an arts school. Can that vision be part of the building redesign?
It's been like 15 years.
Yeah, we went to referendum.
Every time. But every time there's a
I
referendum.
can't remember how long ago it was to try to get a new auditorium. And so that's a long time ago, that one failed. But then the residents paid, I think it was 100% local, to renovate that theater. So now we do have the renovation, and it's a really nice theater.
Oh, it is. I've been really like.
It still has limitations though, but I'm thinking like dance space and theater text, like a cap, right? Like there's a lot of extra things that could be added that need space if the vision truly is. So it's a waiting.
So I would be honest with you, we have not gotten to the level of identifying high school typologies.
Okay. Christiana is definitely the CTE track, right? Because of their ag program.
Ag specific.
Ag specific,
Yeah.
right? And
The stuff going on there around ag, the renovation, again, I think that might have been local too. The Christiana, I think it was. Those new spaces really stepped up and we were able to add programs because of them.
All right, again, thank you for these questions. We will record them. Any other comments for high schools? We just have a couple more questions for you. Yes?
I didn't hear anything. I seen the two high schools, but I didn't hear what your thoughts were. I might have missed that.
So right now, our recommendation is to maintain status quo at Newark High School, other than fix the facilities that need improvement. Because we think we need to be flexible for the next 3, 5, 7, 10 years. Yes, sir.
Anybody ever thought that with the Reading Consortium for the kids from Christina, that a lot of families would start coming back to Newark, that those facilities would need to be improved for Newark and Louisiana to bring those families back as well? I don't think we're really thinking about that. We can lose a lot of families because of that, but we're not thinking about if this happens, what's going to happen with all these families that are going to the APO, to the Votex, into the private sector.
That's a very good point. So our demographic report will forecast 5 years from now, but I can tell you our demographer is probably not factoring in the Reading plan, for example, on what that could do. So I do think in general, you're not going to be able to, it's my opinion, you're not going to be able to solve the whole problem in this first step. I think there's an initial step. Then I think you have to wait till the dust settles, so you see what happens. The demographics change, the plan changes, and then you have another major step. So we presented a lot. I don't think you don't do it all at one step. And we're going to talk about sort of order of magnitude steps. So are there any other concepts for consideration at the high school level? And I'll be honest with you, the high school level was the most difficult one for us because there's so many moving pieces.
There's a question. You answered it earlier, but I think they just came on. What's to come of the Honors Academy program at CHS? Would it be affected by the consolidation?
I would say no, the Honors Academy is.
Today, our plan would be to maintain what's going on at Christiana High School. Honors Academy would remain there. That's the current intent. I think that the comment made, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I think that's our Christiana Honors Academy right now. One of the most successful programs in the state, not just in our district.
So this is another idea that potentially could be in play at Glasgow 10 years from now, 5 years from now, is that there's a PD center here and other events. Fixing the disastrous Christina's High School's auditorium. All right, so what is your opinion of the high school level concept right now? I agree with this consensus here is the high school is a little bit more of a difficult problem, particularly in comparison to the other ideas that we've also initiated. Okay. So this is very high level. This is just graphic. We have an order of magnitude investment for the concepts. This is just our opinion. There's no values here. Obviously, a single dollar sign is a lighter lift than $4 signs, as if you go to the restaurant. The reason why the middle school concept is $4 signs is because, like I said, it's the whole enchilada. You just can't do one of these. It'd be a disaster. And then the elementary schools, $1 to $2, the high schools, $2 to $3. I just wanted you to graphically see that the middle school program initiative is significant. So are there any other impactful concepts that we should be considering? Are we missing anything? Yes.
I know we talked about it as a driver, but you know, when you said that early childhood elementary is the lowest price, we still haven't solved half that problem. Space for special education.
You are correct. You are correct.
Are we sharing the slides?
Yes, so I can share, I will share last month's presentation, and then when this is done tonight, I will download it, and it has the results in it too, so, in the comments.
But with an overall arching plan of going with the elementaries. And I'm talking overall arching. Of redistricting, I'm not just talking like 2 schools that switch, I'm talking an overall. Would that possibly give us some additional spaces in buildings for our special needs?
Say that it could. Can't tell you exactly how many.
So,
Right, and I'm not talking about
Because
having
it changes
10.
every year too.
Right, and I'm not talking about having 10, but you know, you add 2 to this one, 2 to this one, 2 to this one.
so conceptually, if you think about it, it doesn't add any spaces unless we, somewhere in here, we also do an addition somewhere. Just in, I'm talking big picture based on your question. But what can be done is we have a few schools that are less utilized than other schools. But they're not less utilized because every school is maxed out. Because if a school has a classroom that opens up, Brendan puts a classroom in there the next day. Right? Because she is.
But you wait 2 weeks, it is not that. We make sure they're clean for them.
We are so doubled up in our Brennan classrooms right now.
Right.
That, but there's certain schools that tend to be
Yeah, no, I.
a heavy Brennan load or a heavy reach load, right?
Right.
So potentially we could spread that out a little bit better, not, I don't want to give her a heart attack, not every single school is now feeder because we have to cluster for services.
No, and I get that. I guess I'm also talking and considering the fact that in a situation, and it's not always the same with Reach as it is with the Brennan School, but you can be utilizing a classroom for 2 Brennan classrooms versus sometimes with Reach and all of the things that the students need, still only can use 1 classroom for that. So that if you do the spreading out, would that allow us?
All of that has to be taken into consideration as part of, if we were to redistrict, all of that would have to be taken into account as we figure out who needs to open up a room and who can close out a room,
Okay.
and that's where shifting can take place.
All right, I'll just read a couple of these comments. It would be important to get more pre-K students in the district schools to help offset migration to non-public schools.
When does the typical flight of the student happen?
Middle school.
Middle.
Then our experience has been middle school.
Right?
It's,
why-
it's at transitions is what I would say.
Right.
I would say that from the elementary, from 5th grade to 6th grade, that's a transition. And there's a group that will no longer attend Christina schools. And then when we get to high school, there's another transition. Now when I say transition there, it is not necessarily all out, but there's potentially there's some of them that are coming back, but others going in. And it really has to do with options, right? So in our area, when some of the charter schools opened, they opened starting at middle school, right? So there's more options there. At the high school level, there's more charter and parochial school options that don't exist because they're only high school options. And then the vote size. So yeah, so that's at every transition, we don't tend to see people leaving in fourth grade, right? They stay through their school, and then at the transition, that's where choices are made. As a general rule, not a perfect rule.
Okay, now. Go ahead back to your phones and rank the concepts for consideration from 1 being the most important to the future of Christina School District and 3 being the least important for the future of Christina School District. Yeah, you see the challenge, right? They're almost all equally important. All right. Let's try another question. I'm just waiting. Some of
I think
those.
this is the horses in Rehoboth, throwing balls.
All right, next question. This one is rank the impact of each concept to the Christina School District. From the left being not very impactful to the right being very impactful. How many people online do we still have?
13,
How many did we start with?
actually, sorry, 15.
How many did we start with?
5.
Oh,
But we went up to as high as,
18.
yeah, I thought it was.
okay, a couple more questions. So would you support all 3 of these concepts as part of a 10-year facility master plan? Yes, maybe no. Now this is, would you support all 3 of these concepts? All right, next question. If you said yes or maybe, what project would you do first? Now, some of these questions are unfair, I know, but that's.
That's the last.
Yeah, I
one.
do.
They're all still about to close, they're all about the same.
Middle school, kind of always kind of little.
All right, this is a little bit of a difficult question, but if you selected the elementary school concept as your first step, why?
While they're doing that, there was a person online just presented an idea, also reutilizing libraries in high schools. Since they are not full librarians, make them into innovative classrooms.
We have. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, I'm just reading from public comments.
So I'll read some of these comments here. This one just says, early learning lays the foundation for future learning. Need more pre-K slots to provide required services. This concept is the easiest, cheapest, and fastest to accomplish and get returns. Can be done fairly, quickly, easily, and inexpensively. Biggest bang for the bucks, brings in new families. Quickest and easiest change. I think it's likely to be the most impactful. Okay, I'm sure you can guess what the next question is, right? All right, let's go. If you selected the middle school concept as your first step, why?
Natural light is needed.
Our students won't grow without natural light.
Right.
All right, so I'll read some of these. Student retention, this is where we lack and lose kids. Need to make this better. Highest cost, but will get people excited. Our current facility at Gallagher is not an acceptable place for scholars to learn. Families will more likely stay in the district. Middle school is a tough time, important transition point. Greatest facility needs is Gallagher, currently in the district. Middle school is where our district starts breaking down. Those poor kids need natural light.
That's true. That's real. That is real.
All right. If you selected the high school concept as your first choice, why? Now, there were only a couple people that selected, so I can understand if there are minimal responses to none, so that's okay. Might just be because.
I also feel like jumping in at this moment on our high school stuff right now, being as we're sitting in that 3 to 4 year limbo of things, it's a challenge to really jump at things to know that you could have to take a hard left turn.
And which is why it's important to go back and look at this initiative. Do no harm is what we really mean, right? We want to, if we can be a little bit more efficient, take off some lease space, get out of Eden, and, you know, maybe come here, that may be the option. All right, so we do have some comments.
College career ready.
This is where we lose the most kids and there's no plan. Student loss, also college career ready. Improved facilities would increase enrollment. Greatest number of choices for students and families. Competition is great at this level. Student retention and recruitment.
But none of the plan really does anything for kids. It moves district office here, it moves networks, a small percentage, but really it doesn't improve the other high schools. I mean, it doesn't really affect kids very much, in my opinion. Right?
No, I feel like it's falling apart, man, and you're telling me we don't have a plan for Christina and Newark. This is killing me. I'm just being honest. I live it every day and I just walk in and I'm like, this is terrible. There's no plan.
You mean outside of facilities, like ceiling tiles and lighting, or more?
You need to come to our building.
So when we did you tour, oh, it was closed when you got there, yeah.
It's 3 o'clock on a Friday. Yeah, it's terrible.
We'll make a visit.
3
Like
o'clock
a-
on Friday? Is that when you came? 3 o'clock on Friday?
Yeah, well, we started earlier in the district.
On a Friday?
That might as well be Sunday.
So, I mean. So, Dave, you had the opportunity to go through Newark and Glasgow, with some other staff as well. What was your opinion? Not that they may not need work, I'm just curious.
I thought,
Apparently,
Newark definitely needed some work, but it wasn't as bad as had been broadcasted. I walked to the basement and I heard there was issues with dampness and stuff like that. I did not see that when I walked through there.
There's room that's getting a little bit more every
Yeah,
weekend.
flood every time.
Again, the head custodian did not show me that.
That's not.
There it is. There it is.
When it rains hard, our basement floods. Every room has a dehumidifier because the mold is so bad. Our elevator floods out. Our showers, we don't even have showers in locker room. Our kids can't even change.
Nobody has
Is
showers.
this Newark or Newark?
Close, I mean, my opinion is so close to the University of Delaware that it needs to have that facility kind of upgrade to make that connection. Yeah, but we had over 450 honor roll schools. There were a lot of AP and dual enrollment classes. So you need to have those facilities to make that connection.
It's a difficult, it's a puzzle, right? Because it's so close to the University of Delaware, it makes it prime real estate.
Exactly, so you
So
can't
at
have,
what point do you balance? I
you
mean,
can't have University of Delaware there and then have, it's almost like, yeah.
University of Delaware.
sounds like it's worth a lot more than an asset.
well, yeah, but you could see, right? You could see, this is all about whether you're a gambling man or not, right? I have made a presentation before that says we want to maintain that asset because it's valuable, not only to the students and staff of Christina, but it could also be even more valuable to Mr. X.
That would be nice.
If anything were to ever develop, I would hate to see we just invested $50 million in a building that may no longer be in your portfolio, while you had then may have the opportunity for a brand new high school that could have all of these features that you're looking for. Christina needs a new high school somewhere. Right? I mean, right?
Right.
So where and when? If I had a crystal ball, you know, I wouldn't be doing this, so. So that's the challenge. So certainly we always want our schools to be warm, safe, dry. We don't want mold, we don't want, you know, ceiling tiles. Maybe we got a different type of tour of
You
Newark.
totally got a different.
And I think that's true. You know what, our buildings were like, they're, like, I teach in a basement that has deep, has mold, yeah, we do, like, a lot of them do.
So we do know from the facilities condition report, we do know that there's a significant need at all these buildings. It's just part of the challenge. Yes.
I also think through, and University of Delaware continues to expand. You're looking at potentially a lot of the families moving into that, to the surrounding neighborhoods. And that is yet another reason in terms of value added. I mean, of course, I think it's important that all the high schools, all the schools for that matter, receive levels of renovation. But just thinking in terms of like UT's plan to continue this expand. And you need families that will be living in that environment. And I'm thinking in terms of what you're stating, that a great competition would do that. We reflect what's happening here, that our high school reflects what's happening here within this growing university community. So if it is to be a thoughtful community school for all of those professors, all of, you know, everything else that's related to UT, you would want it to make sure that it reflects the caliber of the programming that a local university that's provide. So I just think that that's such a critical piece of property.
We'll skip this one. What would you do second? So I want to thank you for your time. We got done a little bit early. So feel free to call for any more questions, comments, or concerns. Dr. Shelton, do you have any closing remarks?
Yeah, so I just want to thank everybody, really appreciate everybody coming out, your thoughtful thoughts and the dialogue. We appreciate the people that come online as well. These seem to have worked well as a hybrid, which is great. It seems to be the way we do business now. And when we're doing public forum type of work, it's a hybrid model. There's been a lot of sort of thoughts, and I like we generated maybe even a few more tonight. Let's just talk a little bit about process going forward, right? So the state of Delaware has a very, very specific process that we have to go through if we want to do any kind of major capital improvements. The goal of this is to help us, A, identify the projects that we want to prioritize. Well, I guess identify the projects, and B, then prioritize. In the end, as a community, we could 100% back one or more of these projects, similarly to the way we did in 2020. But the way the process works is we do something called a certificate of necessity. And then the state of Delaware says, these are projects we will fund, these are projects we won't fund. It's called a certificate of necessity, but that's sort of a misnomer because everything on our 2020 ask was a necessity, but they only funded less than almost an eighth of it, right? So then there's a second choice, right? So that portion that the state says, yes, we're approving your certificate of necessity for X dollars, and these are the projects we're approving. That is a split. So for Christina, it's roughly a 65-35 split, very roughly. And it adjusts every year, but it's roughly that. We can, as we did in 2020, add additional projects, but any additional projects we add, that's 100% local funding, no state share. So that's where this kind of becomes gambling, right? At some point in time, you have to make decisions on what can we get the state to approve, and then what can we get the taxpayers to approve? And like was stated earlier, there's no way what we have in here is a one referendum, one and done. Right? This is a 5 to 10 year or maybe even longer plan in which multiple certificates of necessity will have to be submitted in order, and potentially multiple referendums follow, in order to bite off manageable pieces of this. The state of Delaware is very proud of its bond rating, which is how they build their schools. And the reason we have the bond rating we do is because they limit their bonding. They don't fund everything every year. They significantly limit it in order to make sure that we maintain this really good interest rate because we have a high bond rating. So as far as next steps go, that background was important to understand why these are our next steps. The team's going to come back with taking all the stuff that you guys have talked about. And it's our hope in the next iteration and the next public meeting, it will be to discuss a draft. This is what we're looking at for a plan. And then from there, which will also include some board discussion, we'll use the priorities that the community has helped us with, priorities that the board may give out, and then hopefully we'll be able to get to a finalized plan and an initial certificate of necessity, which would go to the board hopefully by the August, is that what we decided, or July?
Go to the board in July and then apply for the CA.
We're hoping to have the process approved by the board in July because we need to submit the CN if we want to be in this year by August. And let's just be real transparent about this. Oftentimes, your first time in with CN is a no, because there's other projects that have submitted 2, 3, 4 times that are in line. So it's actually not necessarily, hey, so we can go to referendum next year. Well, we can all hope whatever we prioritize is the right thing and we're able to get the CN approved. Potentially what we're doing is also getting that project in line for future funding, which is why it's really important that we move the work along. The last thing I would say is, as we do that, it's going to be really important to continue to have this kind of engagement and maybe even increase engagement. As we get closer to a plan and not just feedback, we tend to get new people involved in the discussion, which can make the process harder, can make the process easier, depends on what those new people bring to the discussion. So. How was that for wrap up?
Yeah, well done. So, any other closing remarks from anyone? All right, well, thank you for your time tonight.
Nice job.
Thank you. Yeah.
Right.